moment might have stirred something in him. And while there's no official plan yet, some insiders say Charles hopes Harry will return with the kids soon to Clarence's house.
It was a quiet morning in London, at least for those walking the streets near Clarence's house. Tourists pointed their cameras at the gates, buses rolled by with their usual rush, and the world moved forward as if nothing unusual was happening. But behind those closed doors, history was unfolding. For the first time in 19 long months, Prince Harry and King Charles III were meeting face to face. At first glance, the moment seemed ordinary. A son visiting his father, nothing more. But for those who have followed the royal story, this reunion was anything but simple. It wasn't just a casual family visit, it was a moment heavy with tension, mistrust, and unspoken words that had been building for years. When Harry walked into Clarence's house, he carried more than luggage. He carried the weight of everything that had happened since his dramatic decision to step away from royal duties. He carried the sting of interviews, documentaries, podcasts, and his explosive memoir that revealed private family details to the entire world. And he carried the burden of knowing that his relationship with his father and his brother might never be the same again. The meeting itself lasted just 55 minutes, not even a full hour, just two men, father and son, sitting together over tea. But before Harry even crossed the threshold, Charles had set strict conditions. There would be no cameras, no Netflix crew lurking in the background, no microphones hidden for content. This was not a documentary. It was not an episode. It was not content. It was family, or at least it was supposed to be. For King Charles, this was non-negotiable. He had been stung too many times by revelations slipping out into the public. Every word risked becoming a headline. Every moment risked being replayed for audiences worldwide. As monarch, he had to protect the crown. As a father, he had to protect himself. Harry, for his part, agreed. For once, he arrived not as a producer of stories, but as a son. And when he left, the only thing he told reporters was, "Yes, he's great." Just 3 words about his father's health, nothing more. To some, it seemed cold. To Charles, it was a relief. At least Harry hadn't turned their tea into tomorrow's tabloid. But while the meeting may have looked small from the outside, it created shockwaves within the royal family. The problem wasn't what was said inside Clarence's house. The problem was who wasn't invited. Prince William. Charles had deliberately chosen not to tell his eldest son in advance. William didn't know until the very last minute that his father and brother were meeting. By the time the heir to the throne found out, Harry was already inside. For William, this wasn't just frustrating, it was deeply insulting. He had carried the weight of royal duties while his brother stepped away. He had remained loyal to the crown while Harry criticized it on global platforms. He had stayed silent while Harry published a memoir that painted him as angry, temperamental, and even physically aggressive. William had kept the monarchy steady, and yet his father cut him out of the loop. It wasn't just about a meeting, it was about trust. And to William, Charles's choice proved one painful truth. The king didn't trust his own heir to stay calm or to allow the meeting to happen without interference. This decision drove another wedge between William and Harry, a wedge that may already have been permanent. Their relationship, once the closest of brothers, had turned into something almost unrecognizable. To understand the weight of this fracture, you have to remember who William and Harry once were. As boys, they were inseparable. They were the firm within the firm, bound together not just by duty, but by the tragedy of losing their mother, Princess Diana, at such a young age. For years, their bond seemed unbreakable. They served together, laughed together, and stood side by side as the future of the monarchy. Their public image was one of unity. William was the steady heir, and Harry the loyal, cheeky spare. They were different, but together they balanced each other. But cracks began to show when Harry met Meghan Markle. At first, William welcomed her, but concerns soon arose. Harry saw it as judgment. William saw it as caution. And from there, small disagreements snowballed into arguments, and arguments snowballed into distance. The final break came when Harry and Meghan stepped down from royal duties in 2020. Their interview with Oprah revealed private struggles. Their Netflix documentary exposed internal tensions. And Harry's memoir, Spare, was the final nail. In that book, Harry described William as confrontational, accusing him of grabbing him, shoving him, even knocking him to the floor during an argument. He portrayed his brother as unsupportive, hot-tempered, and unkind. For William, this wasn't just storytelling. It was betrayal. It was family business turned into global entertainment. So when Charles secretly met Harry, leaving William in the dark, the heir felt humiliated. In his eyes, his loyalty meant nothing. and his brother's betrayals were once again rewarded with access. But Charles's choice wasn't just about politics. At 75, with health concerns casting a shadow over his reign, Charles is said to long for peace with his younger son. Despite everything, he misses Harry. He remembers the boy he once raised, the boy who laughed, who rode motorbikes with him, who shared drinks and jokes. Charles has never stopped being a father, and though he sits on the throne as king, his heart remains torn between two roles, monarch and parent. Camilla, now queen, reportedly supported the meeting. She knew William would see it as betrayal. But she also knew Charles needed this. For years, he has lived with the ache of distance from Harry, and she understood that ache better than anyone. But even with Camilla's support, the meeting raised difficult questions. Did Charles put his desire for reconciliation above the stability of the monarchy? Did he risk William's trust for a fragile connection with Harry? For some inside the palace, the answer is yes. They worry the king has opened a door that should have stayed shut. For Harry, the meeting may have been hopeful at first. He came with certain expectations. Insiders say he wanted acknowledgement for his children, titles for Archie and Lilibet, recognition of their place in the royal family. Some believe he even hoped for a return to a more official role within the institution. But Charles made it clear that was not going to happen. The monarchy had moved on, and Harry's role in it was over. The meeting was not about titles, status, or housing. It was about family, and only family. Harry left with little more than tea and polite conversation. To the cameras, he smiled. To those who watched closely, he seemed unsettled. At his next appearance, the Invictus Games event, he arrived nearly 40 minutes late. Officially, it was due to traffic, but whispers spread that the meeting had left him shaken, distracted, and burdened. One person was noticeably absent from Clarence house, Meghan. Her absence sparked endless speculation. Some praised it, saying Harry's choice to come alone showed sincerity. Others saw it as distance, proof that Meghan didn't want to step foot near royal territory again. For Meghan, insiders say the decision was strategic. She remembers the isolation she faced during her time as a working royal. She remembers the scrutiny, the criticism, and the lack of protection she felt. For her, staying away was self-preservation, and above all, she wants to protect her children from experiencing what she did. Charles, however, longs to see Archie and Lilibet. Reports say he misses them deeply and wishes for a reunion, but Meghan's reluctance makes that unlikely. To Charles, this is one of the greatest pains of all, the grandchildren he hardly knows. While Charles dreams of peace, William sees only risk. To him, every conversation with Harry could become tomorrow's headline. Every gesture could be twisted into Netflix content. William's patience is gone. He believes Harry made his choice when he stepped away and burned his bridges when he published Spare. For William, there is no going back. This is the heart of the problem, trust. Grant Harold, Charles's former butler, once said the king no longer trusts Harry. Not fully, not after so many private moments became public. And without trust, how can a family, let alone a monarchy, survive? This is why the Clarence House meeting, for all its symbolism, feels hollow. Yes, father and son sat together, but they sat surrounded by invisible walls, boundaries everywhere, every word calculated, every silence heavy. The monarchy has always thrived on image, stability, and control, but beneath the crowns and ceremonies, it is still a family that argues, hurts, grieves, and sometimes chooses distance over closeness. So where does this leave the royals now? Charles remains a father caught between two sons. William remains an heir carrying the burden of duty while feeling betrayed. Harry remains a son torn between longing for family and loyalty to Meghan, and Meghan remains cautious, protecting her children and her peace. The world sees crowns and castles, but inside the palace walls, the greatest drama isn't ceremony, it's silence. The Clarence House meeting will be remembered not for what was said, but for what it revealed. A family still broken, still mistrusting, and still unsure if reconciliation is possible. And the question that lingers is this: was this 55-minute tea a fragile step toward healing, or the final proof that peace will never come?